Hey everybody, welcome to Sama. I'm Derek Mazzoni, Seattle Sacred Music and Art. We do a weekly stream of fabulous artists from all over the world who are doing what they can to make the world better. Today, I've got Quetzal. They bring musical stories of culture, politics, and humanity, and they are touring, which is fabulous. And the music combines lush ballads to barn-burning Joroco rock songs with unstoppable zapateado?
Zapateado, yeah.
Zapateado foot stomping. They won a Grammy. It has great stages around the world for nearly 3 decades. They're still together. They were founded in the 1990s by guitarist Quetzal Flores and an ensemble of talented musicians bolstered by the powerhouse vocals and songwriting of Dr. Marta Gonzalez. Quetzal emerged out of a particular contentious time during the 90s, spurred by events like the 1992 Los Angeles Uprising, the 1994 Proposition 187 campaign to deny medical and public services to undocumented immigrants and public education to undocumented children. We've been at this for a while, people. This is not the first time. And the Zapatista insurrection in Mexico. Remember that? That was pretty amazing. The group of artivists began to use music as a creative expression, a voice for marginalized people, resistance to conditions of oppression, and as a proactive response to the problems impacting communities in East LA. We are living in the 21st century, so that oppression is global, and the fact that we're here right now, their music and their story is global. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. It's always good to be in the space with you.
Thank you. Appreciate that very much. Let's start with a song. Let's just get into it, and then we'll have a chat.
You want to introduce this song?
No, why don't you?
Okay. So this first song we're going to play is called Barrio Healer. And actually, this is a song that is written about a woman named Ofelia Esparza, a healer, a traditional artist in our community. She happens to be a National Heritage Fellow, NEA National Heritage Fellow. And she's a 90-year-old woman who's carried the tradition of altar making in our community for many decades and has taught many people. And she and her 9 children are monumental contributors to wellness and healing in our community. So we wrote a song in honor of her, and we're gonna play that song for you all right now.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
beats back. Red, brown, gray, black. Barrio Healer reveals secret, sacred medicine that come. Alter life, alter death, and compress a final breath. Alter death, alter down, without a sign. Clear its groove, without a sign. Clear its groove, without a sign. Clear its groove, without a sign. Journey, memory, remember together. Pictures, flowers, candles, a feather. Barrio Healer takes flight, imagining forever. Barrio Healer takes flight, imagining forever. Ah, forever. Ah, forever. Ah, forever.
Gorgeous work. I love that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Derek.
So, you just mentioned a couple of things that I think our audience would love to know. Altar maker, what is that?
So part of the way in which we practice spirituality in our culture, and in many cultures you find this, in many roots cultures you find this, is the offering, or we use the word ofrenda, right? Which is an offering, literally an offering, and that is to the ancestors, to the earth, to nature, to people who aren't born yet, future generations, the 200-year plan. And so being able to create those conditions of hope, those conditions of connection and re-membering versus dismembering, because we've been dismembered from so many things, so many practices. And so the altar is a sacred site of the individual and as community practicing spirituality. And so this is what Ofelia Esparza has really taught us, how to practice the altar, right? Yes, Day of the Dead, and so much more.
Yeah, I think that some folks think that people just, an altar is just about gathering a number of things together, almost haphazardly, like what looks good aesthetically, as opposed to how it speaks, right? So there have been various scholars that have gone into it, but more importantly, Ofelia does this in community, in the sense that she's sort of teaching everybody the deeper significance of what it is. So it's not just haphazardly placing things on a table. It's actually how you place them, and what your spiritual intention is as you place them is sort of creating a kind of a narrative, a dialogue, a way of like a rhetoric, so to speak, right? Building language and body and spirit within the altar itself that sort of helps us make deeper connections, right, with our ancestors.
Perfect. This is exactly what I wanted to talk to you about today. Okay, so I feel like a whole bunch of people could use an altar in their world right now, and they have no idea where to start, even with that. And there's a whole bunch of people that are like really confused at how their lives have, what happened. I use this old metaphor. If I were to talk to you 10 years ago and told you what 2021 was going to be like, you'd be like, this wasn't the plan. Not at all. And so how do you cope with that? How do you process that? And in a way of like, and I don't know the terminology, digest it, interpret it, kind of like be here and know that we're going to move on. And within Sama, I've had a whole bunch of different artists from different traditions that have helped their people deal with difficult times. Anything from Persian traditions, Yiddish traditions, Polish traditions, from cultures and countries that they've gone through some shit, and this music has helped them through that. As a country, as a place right now, we have an incredibly diverse country, an amazing country in so many levels, that's going through its first, within this generation, pandemic of this type, following 4 years of an incredibly divisive political system. We're all aware that before that, it wasn't milk and honey. These issues have been here for various communities. We're dealing with with a bunch of stuff, whether it's the legacy of slavery, the legacy of colonialism, a bunch of stuff. Whoever's in charge makes it worse or better for a little bit, but it's there. And these things that have happened to us could be looked at as in like, this is the worst, most horrible thing. And yes, you lose somebody that you care for, and of course it's horrible, but it's also an opportunity to kind of look at what's going on. And I when you described the altar that way, I was like, okay, I get it. I have one myself from my own experiences, for our own family. It's above our fireplace. It's become that, but a lot of people don't, and they're flailing. They don't quite know what's going on. Either the bad habits are happening, drinking more, violence, losing yourself in the screen or whatever. As artists, it's kind of like your job, and correct me if I'm wrong, where you need to interpret all of this that's going on and put it out as a piece of art that hopefully your audiences will understand and grow from. Now, you guys live here. You live in the States, and you're not playing music of like a what's the word for, like a traditional band, where it's like, these are the songs of our people when we were there, and we made songs for whatever was going on there. You're not there anymore. You're here now, and you're experiencing all this stuff. And this is the question I ask everybody: how's life? How has life been? What will you do with this now? What's your, it's not like you're lacking inspiration. Maybe it's not the right word for it, but it seems like an interesting time for an artist whose job is to write and play for an audience. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. You want to start?
Go ahead.
Sorry, so it's not an easy one. It's like
no, this is great. So the answer to how are we? We are blessed, and we're struggling as well, and holding on to both of those things and learning how to manage them. I think there is a sort of gallo. It's not callous in the way of like not feeling, but callous in the way of like having developed a callus from doing so much work that you have some sort of way to cope with things, and so we don't stop. We are relentless in how we do things, and so Martha was experiencing tremendous back pain during the pandemic, and was able to just get a hold of it and understand what it was, and luckily we have a tremendous community that was offering all kinds of support, and that led to her really arriving at being able to listen to her body and then heal, right? I'm not going to speak for you any more than that, but that's one, that's one piece. But yeah, but and so it's been miraculous to watch and affirming as well, because the way that we look at community is from the lens of assets or resources. Okay. And yes, we know there is a deficit in terms of capital, right? Capital resources, but pretty much everything else, we're pretty damn rich. And so leading with the understanding that there are resources in our community to be able to meet the needs. How do we then build systems of cooperation based on those resources? How do we build the practice of art and culture as a symbiotic symbiotic resources, right? To help support the ways in which everybody is processing these things, right? Because it's not my healing is connected to your healing. I can't be well if you are not well, right? And so this is how we've been moving through. In the course of the pandemic, I was laid off from an organization, and my whole team of that was called the Cultural Vitality Team in a nonprofit organization was laid off. Our program was cut. And so what we did was to start a new organization, and it's called the Community Power Collective, and it's fierce as hell. And it is a group of organizers that are also relentless and are looking at community in this transformative way, this word that you used earlier, right? And we're looking at it in terms of culture. Like, how does culture play a role in this? How do we engage folks in songwriting collectively? How do we engage them in dancing? How do we engage them in altar making, right? In a way that does not require the quote, or does not use the criteria of the quote professional artist, but instead the depth of participation and connected to other folks, right? And so this is how we've been moving through, is just being relentless and being able to look at this as an opportunity. Like you said earlier, it's an absolute opportunity. Yes, it's difficult. Yes, people are suffering. And we cannot go back to what was there before, because it was not good, and we'll end up here again if we do that.
And I mean, I think we did do, the gigs. We did do the pre-recorded gigs sometimes, and, the live Zoom performances and things of that sort. That was great. It was a great outlet. But I think that our resources also and our skill sets translated into also having collective songwriting workshops via Zoom, which we ended up kind of getting, setting up sound in a way that really folks at home could hear could hear the good sound. It wouldn't clip, and we figured out a way where we had very effective collective songwriting moments with different communities. So over the course of the pandemic, I think that we've had well over 30 collective songwriting workshops with different communities, from children to young adults to music educators, to struggling communities with land trust, just about everything you can think of, and every sort of immediate emergency response, so to speak, with social communities that are dealing with different things, and wanting to talk collectively about it. And we kind of provided that space, the creative space, to do so. And so that it's been really great. We got to, and we're lucky enough to have other jobs that we don't just live off of our music. We also, we have other jobs, right? So we didn't have to worry about that part of it. We just kind of had to worry about adapting ourselves to this new moment and move forward as best we could. And whoever asked for, these kinds of interactions, we were always there to do it.
Yeah.
All right.
Speak up, please. Oh, sorry. All right. What are we playing?
So this is called El Toro Sacamandu, and it's we're gonna play. So talk about the tradition, right? We work a lot in. We're a part of a greater community of practitioners, Fandango practitioners, which is the fiesta that gives birth to the genre we know as the son jarocho, which is, one of the most famous tunes is La Bamba, for just to the
Where
small
is
reference.
Fandango
But
from? Where is it? Where part of?
Fandango is a fiesta, a participatory music and dance practice native to the state of Veracruz, Mexico. And its roots are, African, indigenous to that region, as well as, Andalusian like influences, so like Spanish influences, right? From Arab and Spanish. And so 400 years later, we have this genre that's been, inspiring people. And there's a lot of old, it's written, the verses are often written in octosyllabic form. And the verses that I'm going to sing today, there's only two, but the form, and it's been written collectively with a group of soneros that have been getting together, which are folks that doing this practice, and wrote it collectively over. We've been meeting once a week for over a year, with a maestro named Patricio Hidalgo, and our group is called San Lunes de la Versada, which are those who gather on the Mondays to create these poetic forms as a way to, just as you were mentioning earlier, just to kind of like get our ideas, our thoughts out, envision new futures, all kinds of dreaming going on.
Just to give a little bit more context, Derek. So the Fandango itself is something that is newer to the United States. Marta, myself, and a group of musicians who played son jarocho already, but didn't know the Fandango tradition, traveled to Veracruz and built relationships with Fandango communities, which now Seattle is one of those sites that has a Fandango community. And actually Patricio Hidalgo, the master artist that she mentioned earlier, is someone who has visited Seattle and done work there with the Seattle Fandango Project. And so this practice of the Fandango has been essential for continuing to build out different spaces and different ways in which we can do what I was saying earlier, which is to create these cultural and artistic spaces where people can practice without feeling that sort of capitalist impulse to produce, but instead to feel the human impulse to participate, right?
Yay! Awesome.
All right.
I know
That's gorgeous. You have some pipes.
Oh, thank you.
No doubt. So you're playing this weekend. You're playing on October 2nd at Town Hall in Seattle. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for coming.
We're really excited. We love Seattle. Seattle's like a second home for us. So.
Thank you. It's going to be a virtual show and it's going to be a live show all at the same time, which is gorgeous and it's needed. As I, I've been a fan for a long time. As I got deeper and deeper, I was like, okay, this is needed right now. This is super important because there's just an opportunity for people to kind of just go like, okay, well, there is no going back. I'm dealing with this question a lot. When can we get back to normal? There's that's past. This is how we go as a society and as a community. And I feel also we have a little bit of a moment where people realized how bad it was. People are seeing their neighborhoods change. People are seeing their communities change in a really powerful, positive way. I mean, I live in Seattle. This is a town that's going through amazing transitions right now. This is a town that's about to get a light rail, which is going to connect communities that just were not connected at all. And that will be a pretty significant transformation. It's going to get a bunch of sports teams, which is a really interesting way for communities to kind of come together. And so it's like, okay, here's an opportunity to have that, but also have artists such as yourselves come in and create that sense of, I don't want to call it oneness because it's a little too hippie, but it's just that sense of like, we're all in this together. And obviously something can happen which definitely makes us all feel that. Other cultures have had that through wars, through famines, through ecological disasters, and we're at this really interesting precipice. As a dad, obviously, I'm getting a lot of crap from my kids who are just basically pointing their fingers at me, like, "What did you do?" And I, of course, go point pictures of fingers at my parents and everything else. It's like, no, we all own this. We're all here, and we're dealing with a lot of stuff that is like really difficult to comprehend for people. It's like it's a different kind of world, and I'm repeating myself, and I apologize, but it's kind of up to you to kind of make that work. Because if I was to bring on a philosopher or a writer or a lecturer who's going to go blah, blah, blah about this stuff, it doesn't resonate. But a musician, a songwriter, even one singing in a language that maybe people don't understand, and it doesn't matter. You're connecting. It just needs a little bit of a story and you're connecting. I'm hoping that will happen. I will hope on October 2nd at Town Hall, the new revamped Town Hall. I wanted to ask you a little bit about Veracruz, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about different languages and different identities in there, because one of the things that really strikes people when I play music, like on my radio show from Mexico, that's not in Spanish. People go like, "What is this?" It's like, not everybody in Mexico speaks Spanish. There's a bunch of different languages there. There's a bunch of different cultures there. Like what happened with the Zapatistas in Chiapas. There's like, and that's confusing to them because they're like, what are you talking about? It was like, no, the Spanish came in and they colonized on multiple levels, as we talked about with Fandango. You've got the Andalusian influence, you've got the colonial influence, and then within that, the Moorish influence. So the story of humanity is ongoing. It's ongoing, and we're in this place right now. So as artists, and where you are right now, this is going to be a tough one, and I apologize. Where are we? How is this? How are you? Where are you right now in East LA, as an example? How does that resonate with what's going on in the world? How are people? Is it just everybody's just hunkered down and thinking about themselves, or are they also thinking about what else is going on?
Well, I think that we are definitely following in the trajectory of a lot of other Chicano artists did at the time, in the sense that we are responding to our surroundings, our neighborhood, our culture, and all the adversity that's coming at us. I think that artists before us, recording artists before us, like Lalo Guerrero, Lidia Mendoza, Don Tosti, like all of the, and then bands, Los Lobos, and like all of the other bands that have, traditional and rock influenced fusion bands, they're all, we're pretty much responding in that sense as well, right? We're writing, our music reflects, the concerns, the questions, new propositions, new visions, right? We continue to write. We're working on various projects right now. I think that what I see, I've been in Quetzal for 26 years, and one of the things that I have seen is that there's a lot of collaboration going on right now between different groups. So like we're working on a project with La Marisol from La Santa Cecilia, right? We're also working with our different members are working with other groups as well, right, across the city of Los Angeles and across different cultural groups as well, right, African American communities that work in Brazilian music and West African dance and drumming, and there's a lot of fusion going on and a lot of dialogue amongst different groups, right, which has always been the case in Chicano music, right, where we're not siloed just the Mexican Americans or the Chicanos ourselves, right, we are also have always been in conversations with Japanese American communities, for example, and African American communities, right? It's all reflected in our music. And so that continues to happen. I think that will, perhaps that's always been the case with musicians. They're always, responding and absorbing and responding and then giving new proposals, right, for new visions. But so that doesn't really change, I think, in our world. You want to add anything?
Sure. Yeah. So, as you mentioned, as Marta mentioned, we can take the what seemed like a simple act of Richie Valens recording La Bamba during a time not unlike today. There was a federal program called Operation Wetback during that time. They were still hanging Mexicans in California. Blacks, certainly in 59, were not experiencing a good time. And so this Chicano from Pacoima has a hit in Donna, has another hit in We Belong Together, and decides that he's going to exert his identity, that he's no longer going to hide and maybe be Richie Valens, but Ricardo Valenzuela or Richard Valenzuela, right? And records a song from his culture. And it just happened to be La Bamba. It just happened to be a part of the Son Jarocho tradition. But what it did was to create an affirmation for for millions of people to feel like they belong, to feel like they are seen and heard, right? And this is essentially what our job is today, is what are the different ways as musicians that we can create space, whether it's on a stage or off the stage, I don't care. But we can create space for people to be seen and heard, to be moved so that they're able to move, right? To create the possibility for mobility in an otherwise immobile situation, right?
That's perfect.
And so I feel like this is what we do.
That's perfect. Thank you for sharing that. That's great. It gives me hope. It does, because I didn't remember the relationship between the Japanese American community and the Chicano community, and even within the African American community, you've got Brazilians, West Africans, Caribbeans, Haitians, all of these things, all of these diversities can be brought in and create something truly amazing and truly wonderful. That is, I got to come up with another word than transformative. I think I've been reading too many alchemy books or something, but something that can be of this time, of this, and we can look at like this is the springboard.
Yeah.
And we actually have a project called Fandango Bonn that brings together the Japanese Obon tradition, which is the honoring of the ancestors of circle dancing, West African Guinean drumming and dancing community here in Los Angeles, and then the Fandango community here in Southern California. And we come together once a year, and we have this retreat, and then we have a day of retreat, and then we have the next day, and we actually do each other's dances.
Yeah. And it's
and music.
Yeah.
Go ahead. It's performative, but it's not a performance. It's participatory. So all the communities that are connected to those practices come out, and we all circle dance together, and we all like tell stories, and we do all these things. There's an altar there that's built, And it's a pretty powerful event, and it's very intentional on building connection between these communities so that we're able to build power. I mean, it's a power building project, to be quite frank.
And I think that we are being much, well, I'm sure that past generations were also as deliberate, but I think that because we're doing this through dance and music, participatory music and dance cultures from the different groups, right? I think that it has a kind of that sacred feeling to it, right? In looking at each other's practices and seeing the similarities among them, and inevitably these sorts of practices and shared practices leads to a greater critical consciousness about a lot of other things. So like, it's not just about getting together and doing each other's dances. We're also talking about the earth and sustainability and like all of the different ways in which we share best practices in gardening. We share best practices in recycling or anything that has to do with the earth or land acquisition. What we talk about community land trusts. I mean, like it just kind of spirals into greater conversations about the things that are affecting all of our communities, and especially right now in Los Angeles with like gentrification at an all-time high and like, poor communities being pushed out. I mean, all of these things affect all all of the different groups that we talked about, and rather than struggle in our silos, we get to sort of have it in a celebratory way, but it sort of springboards into these conversations that are necessary for all our communities, and this kind of cooperation has been going on for since the beginning of 67, prior till then as well, right? We've always had this, and we have more scholars writing about these things now, but I think that we're just continuing in some ways that legacy of cooperation between the different groups.
I personally feel that that's the only thing that's going to get us through this, whatever the next step is, because it is you can't really rely on the instinct is like, oh, the government will take care of it, or a giant corporation will take care of it. It really is individual and community efforts that are really going to be here. And this isn't new. This is this is stuff that we've had, but as individuals we've been isolated out of this, and it's so easy to fall into a sense of nostalgia, or in Portuguese, the saudade, where you're just living in that space. You're not present, and you might not know how to be in there. And I find that artists such as yourselves can lead people in there, like the way you described that other project, where you've got these two different communities and you are participating, and you're not so wrapped up in producing, but it's like the thing that you're getting from being there cannot be commodified. It's just
Exactly.
there's no way to do that. But it becomes interesting because we're living in a different age right now. We're living in an age where this device does everything, and you're connected in many ways, but that connection is built on, initially it was built for the purpose we're talking about, and then the machine came in and realized that it could make a whole bunch of money off of it, but the tools are still there. It's the same hammers. So I'm curious to see, I'm not saying that give me your recipe right now, but I'm curious to see how these tools that have, and even these algorithms that really don't have a reference point, they're just math, how they could be utilized to share this music, to share these ideas, share this concept, share this, and create that sense of community. Because we're just at the beginning. We're just barely coming in there.
If I could give a quick story, anecdote about some of the work that that myself and other artists are doing in prisons. That speaks to what you just said right now. And so we have a lot of traditional artists teaching in prisons. And the thought is that these traditional artists are coming from the same or very similar communities as most of those people that are locked in these cages. And that they offer a pathway, whether or not this person is getting out, a pathway back into the community, a connection back into the community that is very different from the connection that they had previously. And so for the folks that do get out, we just had one of our former participants get out. They look for those communities now. They're aware that they exist, and they're looking for them because they remember what it did for them on the inside, the transformative nature of traditional practices and of those connections that are built through that. And so we have one person in particular. He just got out, and now he's a mentee of one of our artist fellows that is really leading a lot of this work as well. And he's in. He's totally in, and he's really excited, and he's learning how to build capacities around his skill set as an artist to be able to impact the way that he intends to impact.
That's beautiful. We need these stories.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Yep.
Can we hear some more music? One more song, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Go for it.
No, wait, I won't do that meditation.
Como quieras, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Go for it.
Just checking. Okay, all right. This is called Pillow People, and it's about, it's in Spanglish, speaking of language, and it's really describing the trajectory of what it's like to cross and have to survive in this country, and just the great sort of misconception. I think that media really portrays these people as coming over here and being criminals, and so we wrote this song during this time. I mean, we've had a lot of moments in time where this has happened, right? Media and people in great power speaking in these ways about these people that are struggling, right? But oftentimes folks aren't connecting the dots as to why there's mass migration and how U.S. imperialist policies are part of this, this wave,
Yeah. A quick story also about this. The title of the song, Pillow People, is my son. He's an only child. He's 16 years old now. He must have been 7 at this time. And when we were recording this, and he had Evan, our drummer, Evan, is my son calls him his spiritual advisor. And so Evan will often go look for my son when he comes over to the house. So one day we were about to have rehearsal. Evan set up his drums, and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to say hi to Sandino." So he goes over to his room, and he comes back, and he's freaked out. He's like, "Did you see what's in Sandino's room on his bed?" And we said, "No." And he said, "He's got all these pillows, like dressed up, like and with masks on, and they're like a whole." He's like, "That's how in the Ifa tradition, that's how we dress the ancestors, with the masks." And he's like, and I asked him, "What is that?" And he said, "Oh, it's pillow people." And so we thought, what does a pillow represent, right? This is that thing we lay our head on, we rest and we dream on. We pour our dreams into this pillow. And so this is the idea of pillow
I
people.
love that story. Thank you.
It's you.
Over mountains, over cerros, over desert valleys, from the ranchos to the towns to the city alleys, coming ones, coming twos, Texas to Cali, people walking, running, crawling border tallies, men, boys, women, girls, young, old, skinny, fatty, hold their elders, hold their oats, hold their little babies, no food, no means, no way to have it, run, stumble, fall, get back up and at it. Truck it, walk it, run it, under moon, under radar, make the dash and gun it, touching down, get to town, washing, working, mowing, taking heed, filling need, sending lana, knowing that you need, filled by greed, past and present sowing, other ties, U.S. lies, co-intel and broing, the more they come, build, challenge, states of law and knowing, what is seen, what it's moving, there is no destroying, and if you've heard this story, Echoes in the valleys on the Vestia drifting. Milagros, santos, nichos, luck, elder persinadas. A safe return, a miracle, new peregrinada. The oracle said miracle, yeah. History at its pinnacle, yeah. The oracle said miracle, yeah. Dreaming is a pinnacle, yeah. And if you've heard this story, you know more pain than glory. And if you've heard this story, you know more pain than glory. Oh, pillow people. Oh, pillow people. Oh, pillow people. Oh, pillow people.
That's great. More of that. We need more pillow people. That's perfect. Thank you so much. Thanks for being part of this. This is awesome. Massive success. What is it?
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting us.
Anytime. More. I look forward to seeing you. Look forward to having you here in Seattle. Look forward to having you more often and touring and recording and doing all sorts of great stuff. Your Smithsonian is your label. It's putting out stuff. Is there any new recordings, anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, so we do have the latest recording was released this past spring. It's called Puentes Sonoros. Not a good time to release music, but what are you going to do, right? So Puentes Sonoros is sonic bridges, essentially is the translation, and it is it's a document that we created based on a trip that we took to Veracruz as a band to visit all of our homies over there in the different Fandango communities. And so we just hung out, ate, played music, did field recordings of all that, and some interviews with folks too, just like, not really interviews, but just like random conversations. And then we came back and we composed like songs in the tradition mostly. And then, we recorded an album and stitched all those things together. And so you're going to hear all these sonic landscapes that are like on top of each other of playing, of voices and of stories. And then the actual songs themselves as these sort of the culmination of those moments.
That's a beautiful story. That's what's needed right now more than anything. I hope you've, the tools I was talking about before, the hammers. I hope you utilize them and share that, because people need to see that. People need to experience that, and they need to be inspired to kind of do that themselves and create that community. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for playing. And I got to say, you guys are living well. Yes, it's a hard time. Obviously, things are hard, You're not idyllic or anything like that, but you're living well. It feels like there's, you're not in a desert. You're actually building a garden, which is lovely.
Yes.
We are blessed.
Thank you. Be well. Be safe. You got it into Sama. Sales, Music, and Art. Join us next week.